Hello, and welcome to another episode of a Podversation with. In this episode, I'm interviewing my friend Marc Adam Smith, who's a improv comedian for 20 years, been a stand-up comic for years. Great dude. This episode is super long, and I decided to keep it that way because I really think there's a lot to learn from Marc. Plus, it was just a really interesting and fun conversation. We start off talking about the late, great Alan Shain, and kind of progress from there. Thanks a lot for listening. Peace. Place where
that's where I first. He came in like the first show. And this guy shows up and starts, and there were like 6 people there, and all other comics. And the only one I remember that stuck around other than Alan was Andrew Casatano, who I met the first night.
So that's kind of recent as far as like.
Yeah. And Alan comes up and starts talking about butter and Korean women and ass licking and coming, and I was like, and I'm howling like an idiot. Because to me, it's just nobody's doing anything like this.
Yeah.
Nobody. I don't see anyone doing it, and he's just like so into his there and looking. And until the second show or so, where I was in the booth helping in the booth, did I say he's looking at himself,
which I didn't realize it took
he's not recording.
8 months.
He's looking.
It was 8 months before I realized it, and when I realized that, I was just like, wow. Well, he was recording.
Yeah, but also recording, but
why?
His face, he's looking at himself. Why? We'll never know. And I'm happy. I had a conversation with him one night. We just sort of matriculated over to the corner. I'm not gonna. I didn't want to. I said, hey, what's going on here?
Chill. Not trying to like break him down.
No, because I didn't feel that's not my right to break him down. My right. My thing was I enjoy and. There were other people who'd seen him who didn't, but I enjoyed what he was doing, and I enjoyed when he said Luann, whether he was kidding or not. And we just chatted for like 5 minutes. It was nice. It was because there was one night we had to go to some other place. What the hell was that fancy place that we had to do? We did the show and the mic, some little pretentious loungy place down where they.
I think that was before, right before I started. And
Alan and I were there, and we just started to talk for like 5 minutes. And I was like, just about nothing. And it was good, and I was like, okay. It kind of broke for me the fact that, he's doing this.
Well,
but he's just a guy trying to get through life.
Yeah, the thing that I didn't realize, it took me till after he passed away to be like, it wasn't, because everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people would be like, do you think he's like that in real life? Right. And I was just like, I used to think, oh, he's a character or whatever. Mm-hmm. But then, the thing I realized was, he was just telling jokes. Yeah. That wasn't, it's like it was a character, but it wasn't. You know what I mean? Because the difference between him and most comics is he never stopped telling a joke. The whole act was a joke from beginning to end. Mm-hmm. And not a joke in a farcical way. Right. Just every moment of this is my performance. Yes. Whereas with somebody like me, especially when I'm doing crowd work, it's there's elements where it's bland or it's rote or if it was a topographic map, it would just be flat because it's facilitating. Mm-hmm. But for him, it was all right. It was all part of the thing. So that's why I think when people would have normal I had a 30-second interaction with him, but I was just like, okay, he's not a total creation, he's not a guy that goes home and, takes off, and becomes a different dude, but but also by the same token, there was a consciousness to it, I think. That was, a consciousness, and I'm not even saying it was, some people are like that because they're neurotic, They play a character in every social interaction. Right. So it's well, what is this guy like when he's not, when he's home? And it's well, I don't know, because it would be different if I was there. Right. He's not talking to people, so who knows how different anybody is from one point to another. So when you saw Alan, like, it didn't even matter to you that anybody had seen him or not?
No, I just saw this old guy come up on stage with the beard and the gray, and Leanne had mentioned it to me. Oh, Alan Shain, he used to do the Magnet show. I said, oh, and when he walked up on stage and he just started, with the ponytail and started doing his material and talking about what he was talking about, I was like, wait, what? And I looking around, is there somebody filming this for like one of those, no, what? Who? Because he's doing, anybody who had a unique point of view, I try to do that. I don't always succeed, and you fall into hackness, and we all do, but anyone who had a unique point of view and stuck with it, were the people I admire. Because to a certain extent, they know they're going to fail a whole lot of times. They know that going in. And for me, coming from an improv world, where it's like, okay, and I've taught improv now for like 20 years, it's like, hey, guess what? This is the one place you can fail. And you're gonna, quite a lot. Don't worry about it. Fuck it. Who cares? I tell everybody, this is where you go fail. Go out and fail. It's the same, and I say this even now. I said, look, same thing applies. You go out and have a great show. You have people love you. Champagne and blowjobs after the show. Best thing ever. It's over. You go the next week. You have the worst show you've ever had. Your friends leave halfway through. Nobody wants to talk to you after the show. It's over. Same result. Same result. You cannot change that result. So that's when I loved Alan. Fuck it. I'm doing what I want to talk about.
Yeah.
I'm doing these jokes. If you guys want to come along, great. If you laugh, great. If you don't, I don't give a shit. Because I'm not. And to follow that and to stick with it it's hard because you're going to do material that people aren't going to dig.
Yeah, especially when you're doing what he's doing. It's
right.
Not like, yeah.
And to have that kind of like, especially, at his age, it's just like, fuck it, I'm going to do, I don't care if you don't like it, and I failed at that so many times, Josh, it's not even funny. Like, I'd get on stage and go, oh, they're not laughing, let's do something where I know they'll get a laugh or whatever, but maybe it's not what I wanted to talk about in that point in time, because you start to feel, oh, I got to get something.
Yeah, you get self-conscious. I mean, we're performers for a reason. We want to entertain people.
We want people to laugh.
Yeah.
And, oh, that was funny, or that was good, But I just loved watching. When I knew he was coming, I was like, oh, I'm gonna hang around. I hope I get to see him. And he'd always come late when I would. Mm-hmm. For the first couple of months, I would show up late, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna see Alan, and he's gonna do something about, butter and the Korean chick and the Pepsi challenge and black guys.
The Pepsi challenge
coming in your mouth.
So the thing with my perspective of Alan was that. Like that the reason that I asked were there other people, because the first time I saw him I didn't get it, and I was with my girlfriend, and I was just in a different place, and might have been the first night that I ever did stand up, because the first night I ever did stand up, I did a Buddha mic and then I did casual, so I didn't get it, and I didn't think it was funny, and but I was looking around, and I was like, like you and Bob, and I think Mike was there, Mike Kramer, and you guys were laughing, and I was just like, what? I didn't get it.
Right.
And then the second time I saw him, he did the Pepsi challenge, and from that point on, I was just like, and there were times where he would try stuff and it wouldn't work, but I was always kind of on board.
Yeah, I always wondered too if there was ever like a place maybe where he went and just if he knows, there's nobody here that knows me, I don't know anybody else here. Hey, how's everybody doing tonight? Or if he did like just to examine that side of him, where he knows, well, fuck it, I'll play this character now. Because I don't want to get too dead, but I kind of got the feeling a lot of what he was doing was an experiment to see what the reaction would be back to him, and I like to soak that in. For whatever reason that was, which I enjoy, because I've always had ambivalent feelings about audiences, for a lot of years, and I understand. But I also I remember a quote I heard years ago. It was Andy Warhol was giving advice to the Velvet Underground, about certain things, and his advice was always leave them wanting less. Because the Velvet Underground would go on stage and do these long
feedback,
with John Cale and feedback and these songs,
Cello,
and they just released something now which has like a 38-minute version of Sister Ray on it, and a lot of audiences at the time would watch it, but this was 65, 66, and they're used to whatever it is.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Moving with it's
2
a
minutes, 2.5 minute singles,
2.5 minute singles,
20
and here
minute
comes
shows from
these
dance.
long, involved things designed to a certain extent to piss off the audience. And what's that reaction going to be? And I always love that kind of attitude. Sometimes I tell fuck the audience.
Contempt for the audience is a thing that I used to have a big problem with. I used to have it bad, and when I was playing rock and roll, especially because when you're the primal kind of visceral thing, and like the amps, the sound is just literally vibrating your body, and I would get really just bitchy and just mean stuff in between, and I didn't care because I was having fun, and that's a thing where like with stand up. There have been a couple times where crowd work has gone wrong, where and I'll come off and go, because it's the last thing that I want to have. It's like I'll be like I should have been meaner, and not meaner in terms of like, cursing them out or whatever, but just taking on that because sometimes crowds want that. Sometimes they want to be, it's why Jesselnick, his stuff works so much. A lot of times, Dice, Kinnison, guys like that, like Hicks. Sometimes they want to be smacked around a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And give them that and okay, if this is how you're going to be, okay, we'll play this game. We'll do that. But it's difficult to get, and I don't do it. It's just difficult to get people in that mindset of like, sometimes, the audience, they want that. It's like, relations, there are passives, there are aggressives, there's subs and there's doms. And sometimes you're going to get an audience that wants you to come in there and just like, slap them around a little bit and tell them what fuck ups they are. You're a fucking asshole.
Yeah, fuck you, cocksucker. Like, some of my best sets where I literally said fuck you to the audience twice, and that was a thing that I swore in my earlier days that I can't believe that, I would never do that, and then from the more and more I try to be in the moment, and you realize. But like the problem with me is going out, because I always go out nice, smiley, happy, try to win them over, try to do the nice guy routine. So when I find out that they want to get roughed up a little bit, it's hard for me to draw the line where not going too far. You know what I mean? Like there's a difference between a girl who's submissive and one who like wants to get straight up, punched in the face, or choked out.
You got to know that's like, okay, what's going on here? Okay.
Yeah, so it's always hard for me because you make that transition, and in the moment, like, so that's why I'll back away from it sometimes. Like, and then of course I have a bad set because I'm like, I didn't want to get too mean, so I just didn't do it at all.
Yeah, and I remember once years ago at an improv group having this conversation with a friend of mine, and we were still friends. It was, you don't stop friendships, but we had a very different idea of, how to treat the audience. And I was at a time, I was like, well, they don't really matter. This is about us on stage, it's about this. Well, no, without the audience, it's the whole thing. And I was like, I think back to Kaufman, who I didn't mention to you was another, I'm going to sit on stage and read a book. And if you walk out, okay, fine. There's nothing to do. I'm going to sit and read from the great guy. Some things will work, some things won't. I hope you come along with me and dig it, but if you don't, okay. And I sort of like that kind of like, okay. There's not everything, and I'm no sycophant who looks at every comedian and goes, well, I like everything they did. There are certain things they did where I go, yeah, I'm not buying, I'm not digging it. I'm sort of like, okay, I don't, you're going away in an area that I don't, want to hear about. And I'll stop listening, as is my right, as is my privilege to stop listening. It doesn't mean, or even with a band, the same thing. It's like, well, I don't like their new direction. Okay, that doesn't mean I'm never going to listen to them again. Their new album sucked because they tried something different. Okay, I'll go back. I like the band. I'm going to listen to them again. I may not like this album, but I'll go to the next one because I respect what they've done. And I sure as shit don't want them to see them do the same album over and over again that they did the first time, because that's like, well, what's that? They're just doing the same crap. Some people like that. There's some people who think Metallica stopped at Kill 'Em All. Yeah. It's like, okay, they should do that again. I said, they're in their 40s. What are you insane? I don't want to see guys near 50 doing that type of thing.
Yeah, but the weird thing with Metallica is they tried to get younger as opposed to getting more mature.
Yeah, they went grunge.
As opposed to like the Foo Fighters who settled.
Although I'm like one of the
classic rock.
I liked the Lou Reed. I can't say I liked it because there's nothing good on it, but I listened to it because I thought this was interesting.
To me, the funniest,
but it was a lot of wretched excess.
It's amazing how it's amazing how bad. Oh man, I hate to denigrate somebody, but it's amazing how bad he deserves it. How bad of a rock drummer Lars Ulrich is.
True. Yeah.
He's
not good.
He's poor.
Right.
As a metal drummer, he's average. I'd say passable.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Les Binks from Judas Priest was better.
Mm-hmm.
Nico McBrain, and then who's the other guy? The guy that was before him. Oh no, my friends are gonna kill me because I can't remember. The other drummer in Maiden. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, and it's also, that's another thing, you know this because you played music. I never played music. I like music. I've been a music fan since I was a kid. I've been going to concerts since I was 14. But I know, to me, what I think sounds right to me. Like, people say, well, this guy, I have a conversation with people, I got a friend of mine who I stopped being friends with on Facebook because I kept putting, and I started to do this just to piss him off, I kept putting down how Buddy Rich was the greatest drummer of all time. And he would write, Buddy Rich was a piece of long things. I said, yeah, but Buddy Rich is the greatest drummer of all time. I just respond, yeah, Buddy Rich is the greatest drummer of all time. Buddy Rich is the greatest drummer of all time. And I said, and also, if you listen to that Buddy Rich tape where he reams out his thing, that's the greatest comedy bit of all time. It's just the best thing on there. And Seinfeld even talks about it. Where he says, he wrote it in the show.
Yep,
I'm going to take you outside and show you what it's like. He's like, this is the best one. The Buddy Rich. That night when I was sitting at work, it was very boring. There's nobody there. A couple people were rehearsing, so I just turned up. I'm listening to the Buddy Rich tapes, and then I listened to the Casey Kasem tape where he goes off, which is also brilliant.
Did you ever see the? It's funny. I was talking about this with somebody like 2 weeks ago. The sketch. It was Dana Carvey did it.
Oh, I never saw that. I gotta find that.
It was crazy. It was on SNL.
Okay.
And it was a.
Because he did a good Kasem.
It was a post 12:30.
Oh, okay.
It was one of those sketches, and literally, it's that.
Right.
He's coming back from the break. He does the dog. But in this one, but that was the thing is that instead of him because we just assume that he's sitting there, but in the sketch I guess he starts ripping the place apart, breaking records, and cool. It's great.
I gotta find it. But getting back to what I was saying, I don't know. I know when I listen to a Stone song, every time, because I love the Stone, that Charlie Watts seems to be exactly where he's supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't know what that means because I'm not a musician. But when I listen, I say that's exactly where the drums should be in this song, doing what they're doing. And you notice things like that, and I was like, okay. I notice I listen to other groups like, well, that's a bit. What's he doing over there? Because that seems like it's crazy or something like that.
The studio it's easy to, especially now, to make things, to manufacture a groove, and also to just, sit there and give a drummer a chance to turn in a really great performance. Right. Whereas live, especially with the adrenaline flowing, it's harder to maintain the discipline, and that's I think where the strength or weakness of drummers kind of comes out. And if you look at the Stones, especially when they started playing bigger venues, he got better. He got better in terms of being that steadiness, and keeping them grounded and stuff. And he's funny because Charlie's like, I only listen to Keith.
Yeah.
He's like I just follow Keith, and he's like I listen to Keith. That's the only feed that he has, and I look at Mick. And he can tell just by hip movements and
it
stuff.
Works.
Oh yeah,
it works.
Of course it works.
And and that's it. And it works. Like I said, I just know what I see and what I feel. I like this band. I don't care.
Well, with comics, it's funny because especially in hangs and stuff, it's like I have to defend, and nobody brings up Patrice bits that I don't like.
Right.
But it's like you automatically become a defender if you say you like somebody, and I'm just like, I feel the same way. I'm just like, except for maybe Mitch Hedberg.
Right.
Who, because of even that third album, I mean, the stuff he was working on, but those first two records and all his TV appearances and stuff, there's nothing in there that I would take out. But that's a small sample size, especially compared to...
Right.
And
I remember, and he was another. I remember a friend of mine who was a stand-up comic, and we worked in the same office, and he's worked and does it. He was like, you got to listen to this guy. You got to listen to this guy. And, he turned me on to Hedberg, and I was like, oh, no one's doing this. No one's doing this. I just wanted to hear him, and then okay, where's he playing? I got to go see him, because this is, for whatever, it either connects with you or it doesn't.
Yeah.
And when I heard it, it hit me and it connected me. And when I had a chance to see him once at a club, I was like, yep, whatever you're saying hits me, even though we're different, doesn't matter. Yeah. I'm getting it. I'm getting this material. I'm getting what you're doing, and I want to see more of it. I want to soak it in. A lot of comics were like that. I mean, you like someone, and you're right, though. You do end up being like a defender, and other people, especially nowadays when it's Troll City, right? He did this or he did that. I was like, well, that's irrelevant or not the point. Your opinion's yours, my opinion's mine. I like the guy.
Well, that's the thing where, like...
Or the girl, if it's a girl comic.
With Patrice, there's a young, he's like 20s comic, C.W. Headley, that I really respect. He's brilliant. He's a genius. Everybody just, the kid is just, he's just earmarked for stardom and stuff. But he's a big fan of comedy but it's weird because he's got little gaps and stuff. And he's I just started listening to this guy. He's really good. And I'm like, yeah, dude, everybody knows that guy. But he didn't like Patrice at first, and I was like, well, I don't. I don't expect you to identify with it, So, like, it's the same as, with music. Like, at some point, you can argue back and forth, but it's like, if you don't feel it, what are you going to do?
And it becomes like, what's the point of the argument? Like, and people will say that to me, and I do it too. I do it with every kind of thing, with movies or something like this. TV shows, how can you not watch this? And I said, well, I watched it once or twice, and it didn't work for me. And God love you, watch it as much as you want. I'm not going to knock or try to be shit on your like of something, because I get it, but I don't. I don't care for it. Like, I have friends who love, they go nuts for U2 every time U2's around. Always left me cold. Yeah. Just the way it is. Always, I thought the pretentiousness and edges with the same the thing, to me, I was like, yeah, I don't dig them. I don't, there are 2 songs that I liked, and I'll listen to one of those 2 songs, and then the rest of it was like, fuck them. Yeah. I don't care. Oh my God, how can you not like U2? People offered me tickets. Come on, we're going to see U2. I'd rather not go. That's a waste of 3 hours for me, because I'm not going to have a good time. Yeah. I'm not going to just see them and all of a sudden have a come to Jesus moment, because I'm not like that. If I don't dig them, odds are years later, I'm still not going to dig them. I may go back and listen to them. Am I wrong? Because I'll have that moment of, maybe I'm wrong. Let me listen again. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe my life has changed. I'm in a different place. And rarely, it only happened with one band for me, ever, and that was REM.
Oh, okay.
Early on, when I was around when they first hit, was after Eponymous, I was like, fuck that. I like Eponymous. I like Can't Get There From Here and stuff, and
Eponymous
and End of the World. And I love that. And then I got turned off. I was like, nope. Years later, maybe 3-4 years ago, so I was mid-40s now instead of whenever, right? Mm-hmm. I started listening to something. I was listening to Pop Song 89, I think it was, or something from the Green. And I'm like, wait a minute. I said, no, I'm not liking this. And then I went deep catalog, which you can do nowadays. I said, okay, fuck it, let me go deep catalog. Because I just hit the basics, didn't like it, and went away. Then I decided to dive deep catalog on them, and I was like, oh, I'm not saying I was wrong all those years ago, but now I've got the songs on the playlist, and they come up, and I go onto a nice REM thing. But that's been the only one where I've said, okay. Others I tried, and I was like, I don't know why. REM started to hit me at a middle age or whatever it is. Middle age. I'm not going to live to be 100. But whatever. You never know. I started to like REM. And I even have friends who've known me for years and said, wait a minute. You railed against them when you were in your 20s or something like that. I said, yeah, I dig them.
Well, the big thing, that was, for me, working at the record store, especially working with a guy that's, was 20 years older than me. And then another dude later, a couple of years later, who's 15 years older than me. It was just nonstop reevaluating, but the biggest one for me was Steely Dan.
Right. Okay.
Where I literally grew up being like, I always loved "Reeling in the Years" because that song's unhateable. But the thing ultimately I realized was I'm not a big fan of "Ricky Don't Lose That Number." Not a big fan of Oh, what's the other one? Do It Again. I kind of have gone back and forth on. Peg I always liked.
Kid Charlemagne.
Yeah. Well, Kid Charlemagne was the one that kind of
turned it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Actually, yeah, it was that because the first time I heard Bodhisattva, I was like, no, I shouldn't like this. This is an aberration. I was like, this is wrong. And I had heard FM, and it took me a while to get into that. But then once I got into FM, I was just like, oh man. But yeah, I would just spit on the ground and be like, this is the most boring crap. And then when I was 22, 23, when I finally, because I grew up, I shared a room with my father from, I think, 13 to 22, 23. And I was in Florida in an apartment, and then we moved up to New York into my grandmother and grandfather's house, and we shared the basement. But again, still living, our beds were 6 feet apart, 7 feet apart. So I finally took over the basement because he got married and he moved up. He moved upstairs, and I had the whole basement to myself. And I had set up, the stereo with the speakers on both sides of the room, so it was like TV in the middle. It was just this, dream setup after having, been confined for all those years and restricted. And then I don't know why, I just wanted to hear. I had Decade of Steely Dan. Right. I got it from one of the record club deals, the 13 for a penny, and I had gotten it because I loved Peg and Reelin' in the Years. So I would listen, even though Reelin' in the Years, they play that on the radio. Now. You just keep your radio on for an hour and you'll hear it. But I really liked Peg, and so I had it. And then I was like, hey, let me dig it out because I wanted to hear Kid Charlemagne. Right. And then maybe the first night by myself, where it was like the first time in my life, because I worked 11 to 8 every night. So it was the first time in my life that I ever got to come home, take a shower, drink some coffee, and listen to music. Right. Not on headphones, and just sit down and like the ultimate freedom. So like hearing Kid Charlemagne and then FM. Yeah. That was like, and it's so reminiscent of that period. And then I just, because I was at the record store, I just got headlong into them. And now, they're just one of my favorite bands ever. Yeah. I love Steely Dan. It's hard to deny it, And then if somebody, like, going, like, back to what you were saying, like, if somebody really loves something and I don't, or vice versa, what I ask of, it's just like, okay, you get one shot to verbalize your argument for this band, or maybe something that I've overlooked, or maybe there's a certain song that I have to because I acknowledge it. I was feeling I was just listening to the wrong stuff. Or a show like The Wire, I watched one episode, the first episode, and everybody says the same thing about The Wire. It gets better, just stick with it, the first couple episodes. And then you rewatch them and you go, oh, they're not bad, they're setting something up and whatever. But that was one where I just, I reevaluated it. And it's like, all right, if you can come up with some kind of reason why I should check it out, or whatever, I will. Yeah. But after that... Right, yeah. You can't force it. You're going to listen to something and go, yeah, okay, I'm interested. Oh, okay. Like lately I've been, and I go on, like I think everybody does, I'm not unique, you just sort of get into like, oh, I want to start listening to this. Again, I haven't listened to this, maybe an artist or a group or a genre, for lack of a better terminology. So I've been like going back onto like the punk stuff, has its term, the big umbrella, 74, 75. Yeah, the real punk stuff. Here, the New Yorks, all that stuff. And also not only listening to it, because I have most of it, but reading, like every couple of years I pick up that book, Please Kill Me, which is the oral history of that scene. It's a great book. Is that the Legs McNeil book? Legs McNeil book, and I just reread it. But it's I've been watching. I go into but YouTube's great because I go into these like you can find these interviews. Like I watched like a 14-part interview one night with Richard Hell, and it was in these little 8-minute spurts of like talking about so what's going on in 72, 73 when you come to New York from Ohio. And you're this guy who wants to be a poet and everything, and
and the scene and seeing the New York Dolls. And what made you and Tom Verlaine decide, okay, we can do this?
So incredible.
And it's an incredible
that they came
story.
out together.
It's just
so
remarkable.
Crazy.
And this was a recent interview because he just put out a new book of essays, which just came out from his best essays from the past 15. So he sat down for you and has these stories, about you go to see this band and you understand that the fact that they don't play their instruments that well is the draw because you realize, I can do this, and that's what the moment was, and he brings up, the moment of, like, you can watch this, like, he brings up the Sex Pistols when they did that show, I think it was in Sheffield, or wherever it was, in, like, 75, and there was, like, 40,
Manchester.
Manchester show, you're right, and there's, like, 20 people in the audience, but it's the Buzzcocks, it's Joy Division, it's what, they all were like, look at this. Yeah. This is great, but we can do this. Yeah. It doesn't put you away because of, like, the 70s rock scene, and some of it, and I like some prog rock and everything, but I can imagine being a young person and you want to get into it and it's this 14-minute solo with 15 instruments, and I'll never be able to do that. But then you see a guy on stage who's barely standing and playing his instrument and go, I can do that. Yeah. I can do what Johnny Ramone does. You can't, but you could try. Yeah. And that's the good thing about that music, right?
Yeah, and you think you can. Right. Well, it's like the same comment about the Velvets for somebody who's like... Right. Like not many people have heard the Velvet Underground, but everyone that did started the band because it was like, I can do that. And so I started watching the interview with him, and he was interesting. And then it turned me into a Johnny Ramone interview, and Johnny was just, I love his acerbic way. Yeah, they were not. I just loved him. Well, what did you think of the Talking Heads? Yeah, not much. What did you think of Blondie? Pop band. Pop band. Yeah. What did you think of the Heartbreakers? He said, they worried me just a touch, but they were all junkies, so it didn't matter. Yeah. It was true. He said, they worried me a little bit, but I knew they were going to fuck up. And that was the cool thing about him, where he finally, because I grew up just knowing about him stealing Joey's girl and the politics and everything, and then and the thing that turned me on him, there was two things actually. The one is that he's kind of prominent in West Way to the World, the Clash documentary. Yes. Where that's where he says, that was a band, the Clash were a band that I liked. Right. And he said they're the only band I felt like that were doing not the same thing, but were on the same page as us and on the same level. And which is great because then you go to their documentary and Joe Strummer's talking about Johnny Ramone and how having no, do you remember that? Where he's like,
the end of the century documentary. Yeah,
he's like, I had no knowledge of the band, but I could just feel that Johnny Ramone was the leader and just an absolute taskmaster. So his respect for the Clash won me over, and also, he was a big Kiss fan. Yeah. And that to me is like, okay, he saw through the bullshit. Yeah.
That was my first concert, by the way, Kiss.
Really?
Madison Square Garden, 1977. A somewhat famous run for a lot of men of my age that I've run into. I was like, my first concert too, Madison Square Garden. Because when I was
I get it.
13 at the I was 11, 77, 11. I was 11. And when you're 11, when I first saw Kiss, and I said this to her, I said, listen, I'm 11 years old. There's a guy spitting fire and blood. You're an 11-year-old boy. To you, that's the best thing you've ever seen. Especially if you were like I was a horror film fan. I loved horror movies and that kind of gore kind of thing. And when I could see it, like my parents were like, you can't go see it, but I had a cousin who was like, take you see this, And this guy with the blood and everything. This is, and the music was just like thump. I didn't get the music at 11. Or what the songs were about, or the non-entendre of Kiss music. He was like, hey, every song's about fucking.
The subtlety.
Nothing to lose is about everything. I didn't get that till later. I was like, it's a song about anal sex.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of Kiss fans. I explained that to Kiss fans. I'm like, that song's about anal sex. It's an anal sex song. What? What are you talking about? I said, listen to the damn song. It's about anal sex. And then when I get to see them, it's all the big, and they were giant. I was in up, heels, but the heels, and you see these like it's got a throwback to kind of a dinosaur like walking on Earth, and that's what Kiss was. And I was all the smoke on the ground and stuff, right?
And just opening up those albums too, when I would get the Kiss album, because back in those days, you put the headphones on. And for a kid like me, you opened up and stared at the album.
Yeah, cross-legged, put the album on your lap. Yep.
Because you're listening to the song, you're looking at a non-moving picture, but your mind is imagining, look at this guy with an ace, space ace and all this stuff. Holy shit. Yeah, so I've always tried to tell guys, Kiss you got to give Kiss credit. They deserve all the credit and props, and don't, Gene is whatever, and they're crazy.
Well, yeah, I mean,
but forget that because I think a lot of people, when you do a reality show, they forget. Because when he did his reality show, a whole generation, that's the guy who has a reality show with his family. I said, yeah, but this is a guy who put a band together with his buddy and took the Beatles maybe and the New York Dolls and migrated them into something genius. You've got to give the credit. Let's put on makeup and this, and let's take the theatric of rock and roll that these other people are kind of touching on, and let's put it up, let's ramp it up. And how big that was. They were in the 70s, Kiss was everywhere.
Yeah, well,
And we all know that now, but I mean, it was nationwide. They talked about it on the nightly news, and no other band was getting that kind of, Zeppelin was touring, but nobody's doing it tonight. Great. Kiss goes to a town, it's on the news. Kiss invade because everybody, the kids in town, paint your face. Kiss Army and join and do that. It was a movement, at that time. But I remember as a kid, oh my God, I love these. I had the comic book, I had the figures.
The songs were good, though.
And the songs were good.
That's the thing that Johnny said. It was in the oral history book. I forget what it's called. But he was like, yeah, we went and saw a Kiss. Or he said, I saw Kiss a few years ago on their reunion tour, the first reunion tour. It was I had a great time or whatever. And he just said great song after great song, which is true. Yeah. Which is the thing that bothers me is that most people. And if you want to harp on the lyrics, it's like, you know what? Let me see your playlist, because there's nobody who only listens to, even Bob Dylan isn't Bob Dylan all the time.
No.
Some of his lyrics are goofy. Some of his lyrics are, it's not exactly, well, that was a thing where like do you remember Maxim Blender? Remember that magazine?
Yes. Yeah.
Great magazine.
Yeah, it was.
Great magazine. Short-lived, obviously, for those that don't know. But they had done, they would do worst list and then best list, and they were always very astute, intelligent, informed, etc. But then I think they had Paul Stanley as the worst lyricist, or he was at the top, and then Stephen Malkmus was at the top of the best.
Right.
And somebody had just, what was the one? Fruits and, something about fingernails. Something from Slanted and Enchanted. But it was just a goofy, because a lot of Malkmus's lyrics were stream of consciousness. Yeah. And just like, how can you say that the guy that wrote this is better than the guy that wrote, this? Because I think Paul Stanley did write a couple lyrics there.
Yeah, he did. And,
what's the one that's good? Coming Home? Is
Coming Home?
Right, I think that's a good lyric, but I think Love Gun's a great lyric. What's the other one that I really... Oh, Sure Know Something, I think that's a great song.
Hard Luck Woman's a great song.
Oh, yeah.
It's always, if I ever learned how to play the guitar, that's a song I would like to play, because it's just sit there, play the guitar hard. It's got a great lyric. It's got a great chord. It's got everything, and it's like, it's a Kiss song. It's a Kiss song, and it's a great... Because that's the other thing. They knew how to write a good song.
They wrote that for Rod Stewart.
Oh, did they? And what did he do? He didn't.
It's just I don't even know. I don't even know if it made it to him. To be honest, you know what I mean. Like, but they had put it to their record company of like, oh yeah, let's see what he thinks. He rejected it obviously, but I don't know if he necessarily heard it. But yeah.
Yeah, I could see Rod doing that before he was doing his the many.
Yeah, well, like I don't even know if it was necessarily. Sometimes people. Like as a songwriter, sometimes, and it's a fun game to play. You write songs with somebody in mind. Paul McCartney's admitted to it more than once, but like he wrote that song for Sinatra that Sinatra never recorded called "Suicide."
Right.
He also what was it? "Let It Be" was him trying to be Ray Charles. The Bee Gees, "To Love Somebody," that's them trying to write an Otis Redding song.
Okay. And so, I just found out, I don't know why I just hadn't known this for years, but Total Eclipse of the Heart, Jim Steinman wrote that song, and it was supposed to be on the second Meatloaf album, on the Bat Out of Hell. Yeah. And they had a little bit of a falling out, and Steinman ends up producing the Bonnie Tyler and gives her the song. So, so now in my mind, I was like, wow, how would Need have done that song? Like, how would Meat have covered that song, like, right at that time?
But
like,
you
right
can hear it.
And I can hear it, and she, I saw this documentary, on Showtime had just a documentary about Meatloaf. a little thing. And, you know, they interviewed her, and it was like, she's great because it made her career. It was a huge hit, everything like that. And it's like, what the hell? Oh, yeah, I could see Meatloaf doing that. I could see Meatloaf doing that. It was an excellent documentary, by the way, which had a lot to do with like how he started, where he came from. And there's another guy I always appreciated too, again, because of the theatrics. In a completely different way from Kiss, but still the theatrics of this guy, like with the tuxedo shirt and the scarves, and, you know, and everything, and a big, huge guy. So I always, oh, look at that guy. Big fat guy getting the girl, and he always gets the girl, and then he loses the girl, and he gets the girl, but he's big, and there was no just coming out there and singing a song. It was I'm putting Broadway into this, a performance, and, you know, but it was, again, it's good rock and roll. I mean, I listened to Paradise by the Dashboard Light, you know, which is him and Ellen Foley, you know, the great Ellen Foley, who didn't go on tour, didn't do the video, so people, Carla DeVito's great.
She did Night Court and stuff.
Right, and so people, you know, that's the other thing I like telling people. I said, well, you know, that's not the girl in the video. She's great. She went on tour with him, but the original singer was Ellen Foley, who was a great singer, dated Mick Jones from The Clash.
Yeah, he produced a record.
And then I said, and you probably know her, just a friend, you know her from Night Court, where she was the original, or the second. The second, because I think Paula Kelly was the first one, I think, and before Marky Post. The girl, and I said, I loved Ellen Foley. I thought she had that kind of, if this Night Court was set in New York, which where it was supposed to have been, Ellen Foley is a New York public defender.
She was good.
But she had that New York, no bullshit, moxie, fuck off kind of attitude, tough Irish girl kind of attitude, which I always liked. I said, I loved her. And a great singer. I mean, that song, when I listen to Paradise by the Dashboard Light, she slays that song with her solo and her stuff. And then the two of them together when they build, and the fact that they got Phil Rizzuto to go in there and do some stuff, you know, and everyone does it. That's another one I listened to as a kid. Like, what the hell's going on here?
Produced by the great Todd Rundgren.
Yeah, Todd Rundgren. And it's like, what the hell am I listening to? I can't stop listening to it. I don't know why.
Roy Bittan on piano.
Yeah! Again, and I'm like, you know, you listen to a song, it's like, I don't know why I'm drawn to it, but I am. And I'll listen, and it'll stick with me for years. And it'll make me, like, it'll put me in a place where, because when I think of that song, or Bad Out of Hell, or anything, or 2 Out of 3 Ain't Bad, it's listening to the radio in like that 70s when there's still terrestrial, as it's called, whatever, radio stations, which was what I wanted to do with my life when I was a kid, was be a disc jockey. And I listened to the radio like a madman. I'd be up all hours of the night listening to radio stations, listening to disc jockeys. What are they saying? What are they doing? This is the best job in the world. This has to be the best job in the world. You get to play music for a living. It's 3 a.m. This guy's playing music for a living in what I thought was this wonderful, nice gal. This has to be the best job in the world. It's all kinds of stuff going on. It's got to be people hanging out and everything like that, which isn't necessarily the case. When you're young, you romanticize everything.
Of course,
And then I got involved in the radio industry. I was like, oh, this was, and I talked to people who've been around and said, yeah, that didn't happen. That was all, what are you kidding? Oh, okay, it's all bullshit. But he's like, oh my God, it's the best job in the world to have control of music. And for a while, I loved doing it because I worked at a station in Connecticut. And I did overnights at first. And first, like, I was scared shitless. You know, it's like, okay, we're all going to be listening to you, so don't get this, that, and the other thing. And then you realize no one's listening to me at 2 a.m. There's no program director or general manager who's actually listening to me. So I have a little bit of freedom with our play. I have some freedom to do. And we were an oldie station. It was 50s and 60s, some 70s. So I had some freedom to, like, I had a set list. I was like, but here's all the music. I'm going to play this. I'm going to play that. And I would do requests because I was doing overnights. I had 3 groups of people listening to me. Nurses in the emergency room at a hospital, a cab company, and the post office. You know, so however 7 or 8 people, and they got to, after a while, I was like, oh, he'll play a song for you. Like this one guy always wanted to hear Blue Velvet by Bobby Vinton. You know, not all the time, not every night, but every couple of weeks. I said, yeah, sure thing. And so, but I had a little fun, and it was like, oh.
Did he have a nitrous oxide addiction?
I didn't want to know anything what he was doing at home. He called me up. He sounded like, oh.
What year was this?
This was 87 and 88.
Okay.
And I wanted to be a disc jockey. I was obsessed with radio as a kid. Went to radio stations, tried to, you know, whenever they do books, I go to book signings and talk to disc jockeys, you know. I'd write letters, you know, I was this stupid kid. And then sometimes and in those days they'd say, yeah, have your dad come on by, come to the studio and watch, we'll give you a sign, something, whatever. Because then it was like, even the AM stations were trying to stay alive, and the FM stations were going with more weird, not so much weird as it was in the 60s, but their playlists could be different. They'll go. So I just soaked it all up because I just loved. I had 2 obsessions when I was a kid: radio and boxing.
That's interesting.
More so than any other sport, I love boxing. I was and boxing history. And there was publication, it's still out now, it's probably Ring Magazine.
Mm-hmm.
And Ring Magazine used to have offices in the city, and you could go there and they would have the Ring Boxing Encyclopedia, which was a listing of all the champions in the 12 major divisions. Because back then it was still just like the 12, and it had a little history of everything. My dad took me to Ring Magazine once, I'd saved money, and I bought the encyclopedia. It was this big, huge one.
Oh, wow.
Which had every story of every, and you had to go, there wasn't a lot of, you could have mail order, but it was like, no, you come to Ring Magazine, we'll sell you a copy. And that was it. It's boxing and radio. I was watching. But radio was like, I knew early on I wasn't going to be a boxer because I was like, I'm not going to be a boxer, but there's a chance I can be on radio. And that's what I wanted to do. It was like I soaked it all up, listened to it, read books by all the, the people who created like the top 40 in the 60s, the guys who put that on ABC and WMCA in New York, and read books on Alan Freed and all these. How did they start? How did they do this? Because they're the ones, and the payola thing, and who took money, and who took what, and all kinds of, Dick Clark and all kinds of stuff.
Dick
all
Clark,
that shit.
Dick
I
Clark
love it.
That's bullshit how he got off.
Yeah, totally.
He ratted everybody out.
He ratted everybody, and that stuck.
Fucked Alan Freed big time.
Yeah, for years I was like, the history of Dick Clark? Dick Clark pulled a little Elia Kazan there a little bit.
And they're like, they made him break up his companies, and that's a bunch of bullshit.
But yeah, and then the funny thing was I did it, and I enjoyed parts of it. But there was a lot. The industry was changing when I got started, and it was kind of a dying industry. And things were starting at that time to get automated. But we don't need people to do this.
Mm-hmm.
We can have a one recording saying you're listening to the station, and everything done by a guy.
Just an engineer.
Yeah,
that would be there anyway, regardless of if there's a job.
You don't need people.
Yeah.
So it changed a little, and then I got okay. And then I was realized, this wasn't what I wanted. I thought this is what I wanted to do with my life. It wasn't. And that was like a huge depression. What am I going to do? And then I kind of a couple of years later found comedy.
How,
okay.
Well, all right. So the most, I just want to, let's just go back to the very beginning. You said you stopped going to school when you were 14.
I dropped out when I was 14. My mom was sick for a number of years. She went through the menopause, the change of life thing, and it really it did a number on her, so to speak. She didn't leave the house she died in 92, and the last time she left the house before that was 1976. She ended up staying in the house and then staying in her room through various fears and things like that. And at the time, I don't think she was properly taken care of by her doctors or anything like that. But it's a different. They know more now. It's like I realized years ago that I had dyslexia because I would always invert. But in 1978, 980, he doesn't try hard enough. Was what teachers said. Mark doesn't try hard enough, and I'd always I still will invert numbers and everything like that, or do something. My handwriting is really poor. So he doesn't try hard enough because he didn't know. So we can't blame and look back on history. But Mom got really, really sick and got really addicted to Valium and just didn't leave the house. So she was home all the time, and that was just a dynamic that Dad and I, were part of it. Mom's always at home. One of us was always there to help get her what she needed. But when I was 14, my dad got hurt at work. He was a newspaper delivery driver, worked for the Times. And there was an accident with a conveyor belt that he got trapped between as papers were coming off, and he injured his leg. And he was going to be out of work for a while. And he was going to make workman's comp, and he was in a very strong union at the time, a good union, but things were still going to be iffy at home. Things were going to be, we're a little bit in trouble of making it. So I went to work. The thing about being, having a strong union that does things as they want to do was a guy in the union said, do you want to come to work here? We'll put you on, you'll get a paycheck. To me, as you'll get a paycheck, you can work on the floor. You can come in 5 nights a week, work on the floor, you get a paycheck. We'll take care of it, that's fine. And I was like, well, it doesn't matter. If we say you're going to get a paycheck, you're going to get a paycheck. And I knew if I brought in some pay and I brought it home,
right,
it would help us keep us everything above. Because mom had a lot, I mean, you know, having someone live at home and who's got pills and doctor visits having to come to the house, costs were tight. So I did that. And I was working, and I never was the best student anyway. So when you're working, and you're sort of hanging out with guys who are older than you, you age up pretty quick. Yeah. You know, you're not much for... So the thought of then going back to, at 15 and a half or 16, I'm going to go back? I don't want to hang out with these kids anymore. I hang out with guys who are in their 20s and 30s who have accepted me. You know, maybe they know, some of them are my age, others didn't. They didn't ask. I was like, he's a big kid. He seems like, you know, whatever. He's just who he is. That's Smitty's kid. My dad's nickname was Smitty. That's Smitty's kid. You know, okay, hey, what's going on? And you hang out and you're doing what they do, you know? And again, if we're hanging out and a bunch of guys went to a bar, we go to a bar. I was 15, I'm in a bar. I never got carded once. There's nobody carded anybody then. Nobody, you know, if we're talking about 1981, nobody, it's a different mindset.
Yeah, as long as you don't look like you're going to make trouble, they don't need to.
Right, nobody, you know, and it's also the same way. Nobody gave a shit. As long as you don't cause trouble. That's the, you know, the cops were like that back then. Cops were like, you know what? Just don't do any stuff. But whatever. If you're drinking that shit, it's not like it is now where it's more of a force, like, on you. But back then, but that's what I did. So I started working, and I gave money to the house, but I also would have had money in my pocket. And when you're a young kid and you got money in your pocket that you're making, again, it's like, wait, I'm going to go back to not having money in my pocket and going to school?
And listening to some hump that's not even paying your,
Right, and I was like, I'll just stay working. And did a few jobs, and, you know, I stood working where I was there, and then I ended up getting a sales job, you know, because I was always quick on my feet. And I went into a retail place, you know, a record stereo place in Queens that was near me. And I was like, hey, listen, so let's try the... And it said, well, you're young. How old are you? And I lied. I said I was 18. I was 16 at the time. I said, give it 2 weeks. I said, let me work here a couple of weeks. I said, you don't like me? I don't do the job. I walk out. Nothing. I said, I don't need any more. Walk out. I said, but I think I can sell this product, and I think I can get people in here, you know. And I was doing great. I knew stereos. I knew records. So we had a record store and a stereo. I was like, people come in and they start to...
What was the name of the place?
It was called Jimmy's. It was a Jimmy's. It was in Woodhaven, and so it was a short trip for me. And I went, you know, whatever, and I just did my shit. And I was making money, and then I'd stay and I'd hang out, and I go to this. And my parents, I don't want to say they were. It wasn't laissez-faire. You know, like we don't care. But there were other issues. You know, Dad had to work very hard, and we had to take care of Mom, and there was other things going on. So if I'm out, there was a trust. Yeah, okay, I think we raised you right, and you're pretty savvy that you're not going to be a schmuck and do something stupid.
And just trust,
So I go, you know, like I go to this. That's where I first started going to concerts in the city. That's where I was like, oh wait, I can go here. I can go see this band here. I can go to the club, Pyramid Club, or Brownies, or here's a band. I pick up a voice or a paper. Who's playing? Oh, I can go spend money to go. I'm going to do that. So I want to see live music. I want to go. I don't care about anybody else. I just wanted to go see live. I saw the Clash play when I was young in '81 because I had the album. I said, okay, I'm going to go see these guys. I'm going to go see Stevie Ray Vaughan at the Lone Star because I want to see this. I've heard this album. I said, I got to see this guy live. Yeah. Like buy a ticket for $13. And I think, you know, just go sit there and go, okay, this is fucking cool. Or go to some place, the rock clubs. There's this place in Brooklyn called L'Amour, which is a heavy metal club, very famous club. And I would go there and you see them. And then by me in Queens, they had another one called L'Amour East, which is 3 blocks from my house, which went more new wave-ish because the Brooklyn club was metal. This was more new, but it was 3 blocks from my house. So I was like, well, I'm going here because I can stumble home. And no matter what time the club goes, I don't have to worry about being on a train. I'll walk home. And it was great. That's kind of where my interest was that and going to movies. Like, okay, I can go see cheap movies and, you know, the revivals and everything like that. And music. That's what I did with the money in my pocket. It's like, it's my money. I'm working hard. I'm going to go see shows. I'm going to buying albums. You know, that was the other thing. I had a huge record collection. I go to Bleecker Bob's in the city, and I would just, oh, look at this. Oh, my God, look at it. Or find, and that's where you sort of get into, you dive into what you don't know. Like, oh, this band says this is their influence. Yeah. I got to dive into this. Like, I didn't know from blues or anything like that, but when I would start to hear people talk about, well, Robert Johnson, Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, Lead Belly, things like this. Okay, I have to dive into this. Or if I like this, I like jazz, I have to dive into this. What was their influence? Well, let me listen to it. Some of it I liked, and I go, oh shit, I see that. This is like, but it was all available to you. Take it home, the excitement, I bought it. I'm going to get on the train. I'm going to look at it. Ooh, I'm going to go home. And then I'm going to find the time to put on the headphones and let me soak in this music. Yeah. Let me process this. And it was I swear to God, it was my favorite thing to do, to get that album and take it home and listen to it. Because it was nothing like music. It's still to this day. I mean, it's different now because maybe I'm listening on the subway or whatever. When I hear a song that I like, I can just shut my eyes and just sort of put myself in a place, in a mindset, and it makes me feel a certain way. Mm-hmm. Certain songs, like I say, that song, I remember what I was doing exactly the first time I heard that song. And I think to me, music is unique in this, in that it can elicit memories in you, either good or bad, but that it takes you to a place. When you hear a chord or something like that, or maybe you saw them live, or, that guy passed away young, or whatever. And the music's the only thing that can do that, to me. And I love that. It's like, that's good. I'll still, like, a song will pop up that I haven't heard for a long time. I forget which one. Stupid song. There's a song, it was called Might As Well Go for Soda.
Kim Mitchell.
Yeah. I heard that about a month ago. Hadn't heard it since it was around on list. And I don't know where it came up on it. Might as well go for soda, nobody hurts. And I'm like walking the streets like, oh fuck, man! This song, where'd that? And I was like, okay. And it's not the greatest song in the world. It's not a classic. It's okay. But it still elicits, I remember that period of time. That period of time.
It's funny because my father is 11 years older than you, but my memory of Kim Mitchell Go for Soda is him buying it in the mid-90s at a junk store near us, which was the only place you could get LPs in the mid-90s. It was a junk store in Florida at least. Yeah. And he put it on, and he was telling me basically the same thing about, like, I remember when this song was popular, and he's like, I always thought it was pretty good. He's like, it's not a world beater, but so I remember him bringing that home and playing it. He got something else the same day. Rocky Burnett.
Oh, Rocky Burnett. Tired of Towing the Line. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I remember that too.
Which to me is a significantly better song than
Go for Soda. Go for Soda, it is. So that was it. So when I started having the money in my pocket, I was like, okay, I'm not going back to school. I got to figure out what I'm going to do with my life at some point, and I did. And there were a few, I thought radio was it, and then there were a few other missteps in there, but it wasn't. And then Dad got healthy. He went back to work. Mom never did. She just continuously got worse and worse over the course of time because staying at home and being on Valium and smoking Saratoga cigarettes is not a good lifestyle choice. No, it's not. And eventually,
there's no progress there.
She got sick. She got emphysema, and then literally within like a month, where they finally had to take her to the hospital, it was like, okay, you have to go to the hospital now because you can't, because she couldn't, and then she died. It was like just like that. And I was like, oh shit, that's ended quickly. But again, looking back on it, when basically you don't eat much, and she didn't eat much at all, and she Valium and cigarettes, this is going to be the end game. Yeah. You start to realize that. So then, that was basically it. But that's why I never ended up going back to school, because it was kind of like, it's a dead end for me. I mean, I regret that to a certain extent, but then this is who I am, and fuck it. I'm not
So how did you finagle a job in radio?
Well, what I did was I saved up my money. For radio, I was serious about it. I saved up my money and decided I was going to go to a broadcasting school. Okay. So I started saving money. I was like, okay, I'm going to go. There's this place, it's Connecticut School of Broadcasting. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go here because this will be an entryway to the career that I want. So I saved up money. I worked hard. I paid for the tuition. I started to go. I took to it like a fish to water. And I was like, okay. I learned the techniques that I had to learn. I was in a class. I did really well. I was cum laude of the class. It was a big class, and I graduated. I was first. I was like, you're the winner. I was like, holy shit. And it was like, okay, now work on your. And they were very, very helpful there. In like, okay, now you have to create a demo here and start to send it out to get a job. That's how it works. You have to come in and edit and cut. and play records and hit the post and read commercials and do commercial copy and do all this. And you could book studio time there where you get in the studio and you do your thing. You know, you call them up and say, can I book? I come in and work for a couple hours, and you bring music with you and play it. And I did. And then I sent stuff out all over the country, kept sending it out. And like about 2 months after I started sending out, a station in Connecticut called me in for an interview. Program director went in. He said, I like your tape. It was a tape. It was a cassette. He said, it shows potential. We have an opening at overnights. Would you like to do it? And I said, yes, I would. And then that's how it started. And then I did that. And I moved up at the station a couple of times. Like I ended up doing, I did overnights for like 6 months. And I said, yeah, we like what you're doing. You sound great. The evening guy is leaving, so we'd like you to do evenings. So I ended up doing the 7 to 11 shift, you know, on the evening-ish. And that was great. And I was like, okay. That was fun, and I enjoyed doing that. And then a couple of other shifts here and there. But then eventually the station at the time and I was happy that they got sold. Mm-hmm. And they were going all Spanish. Oh, wow. And I was like, okay, well, pretty much, I said, do they want like a one American guy to be funny? No. That was it. He said, no, we don't. So that was it. So I was out, and I kept trying to get radio gigs. But at that time, I kept running into, and there was a guy I worked with. He said, "Yeah, we're a dying industry. Our future isn't. I don't know, you know." And this was well before satellite and everything. He just was like, he could see. He said, "On-air personality stuff, playing music, ain't gonna last. Maybe doing, you know, talk stuff. Yeah, that was
straight format."
So then again, I was like, okay, and then I just kind of lost interest in it. I sort of was like, okay, I did this, and it wasn't the nirvana that I thought it would be. Right. Like I've achieved everything in my life, so I sort of had that moment of like, oh shit. So I went back into retail because I needed a job, and that's when I worked at. I ended up working at a video store, mm-hmm. which was still as a favorite kind of job. The most favorite thing I've ever done because I was just around movies all day, mm-hmm. and it was the best gig in the world. And I already had a different taste in film. Because I knew some weird avant-garde shit and things like that, to where I had customers who would just come to see me. Yeah. Is Mark here? Oh, yeah, whatever. So give me something horror-ish, give me something like this, and I go, oh, okay, have you ever watched Italian horror? No? Ah, okay. And we have a section. And then as I moved up there, they let me order a couple of things. Like, so I can make money off of this. Like I tell the buzz, I say, if we get this, how much is it going to cost you to buy this one copy? I said, I'll get your money back plus in a month in renting it. As long as we, you know, even if it stays out later, I'll make your money back. And that was the key for him. He says, if you're going to order a title, you better fucking make sure that title, I don't want it sitting on the shelf and losing money.
But you knew at that point that all you had to do was recommend it.
I knew I could get these titles out to certain people. Yeah. That was great. And the other part was, you know, I managed the store, so when I'd go in, like on Saturday mornings, I'd go in like, we'd open up at around 10. So I'd get there around 8 o'clock in the morning and immediately put on The Godfather or whatever I wanted to watch, and loud, because we couldn't play R-rated movies in the store during the daytime because kids came.
Of course.
But I played, you know, I'm sitting there, I'm doing, like in the back, I'm counting money out for the registers from the night before and doing whatever else I had to do for the boss. And, you know, and it's like, I'm watching The Godfather, we're watching Apocalypse Now, we're watching Taxi Driver, we're watching whatever Mad World. Whatever I was in the mood for, when I came in, I was like, well, I don't watch that. I don't know. And even though sometimes I just hear it because I'm working, but we had monitors all over the place. So it was like heaven. I was like, I'm in charge of movies. I get to see movies. And then I got to hire a couple of people, and I always tried to find somebody. Okay, this is what I like. I want you. What do you like? Okay, you're different from me.
Right.
I don't want a clone of me.
Right.
I want somebody else because then I want you to develop.
Right, for this guy that never liked what I like now,
he'll have somebody to talk to. Like I used to have, and I had a divergent thing. Like I used to have this guy came in, he was in his 60s, and all he wanted to watch was Charles Bronson movies. All the fuck he wanted to watch. And I know me some Charles Bronson movies. And so I made sure we had every Charles Bronson movie. Mr. Majestic, The Mechanic, whatever it was. I said, okay. I said, how about that? You haven't seen this one yet, have you? Whatever the Charles Bronson, some of the real crappy ones from the 80s that he did. You know, I said, Charlie, he just said, I want a Charlie Bronson movie. I said, you got it. Here's Charlie. And he writes one, okay, we made our money back and everything like that. So it was a fun job. But again, I chose like an industry that was eventually, even though I got out a long time before VHS stopped, but we could see, because right at the time we were working there, laser discs came out. And there was this big thing, it's like, oh, this is going to replace the VHS tape, the laser disc. And, it was like, okay. And we the owner decided to sort of make a transition to the laser disc, but it wasn't a good, because people were saying, wait a minute, a significant number of people are getting rid of their albums for CDs. So why would they are going to laser and new player? And it didn't work, as you know. It just did the laser disc thing sort of, and VHS stood around until the DVD slayed that beast.
I remember. I was there for that.
Yeah, and so, but it was a fun gig. And the other part of it that was fun was, for lack of a better term, they didn't have a good, the store was in Chelsea. And they didn't really have a good, and didn't want any, because there was a porn section. And I was like, well, this is pretty shitty. To the boss, I said, if we get a good porn section, we're going to make money. I said, because...
the cornerstone of any good video store was always its porn section. I said, and I'm not just saying that as a pervert.
We got to uptick this. And he let me run with it. Like, okay, do it. And so I talk. And what I did, the thing was, I knew what I liked. Again, I knew what I liked and what I wanted to do, but we were in Chelsea, which means we had a huge gay clientele. Well, I knew who our client, I would say to them, I'm going to ask you a question. I said, I don't mean to be offensive. I don't want to, our section is shit. How do we improve it? What do you like? What should I get? What should I order? What should I order? And when people who come in, I said, if you have friends, tell them to tell me what to order, and we will have it. I don't know, because I know what I want to see.
Right.
I want to see this girl because I like her or that. That's me. We're not going to make any money if it's all my stuff in the porn section. And that's what the boss wanted. Are we making money? Which I get. He's a business owner. He wants to make fucking money.
But that's smart.
And if he made money, I'm doing okay because I'm moving up the chain there.
Like, let the creative guy make those decisions.
So I would talk to our gay clientele, and I knew what we had, and words started to get around. Oh, they have this movie, or Puerto Rican young sailor boys, or whatever they wanted to see. I said, you tell me, and I made a relationship with the distributor guy. There's this guy, I'd call him up, and I'd say, okay, I want this, I want 4 copies of that, 6, and they loved me. It was like, I would say, we're getting in new stuff. I'd write it down for them. We'd type it out and say, here's the stuff we're getting in. Because, when there are families and kids around, the section was in the back and it had those beads in front of it.
Yeah.
It's totally great. Oh, the beads. But we tried to have a family-friendly store up in the front. But I would talk to clientele and says, here's what we have. Let me know what you want. I'll put it aside for you, whatever you got. And it was good to have that kind of relationship with those people. Because with those people, that's a terrible thing to say. But, what I showed them was respect. Mm-hmm. What I showed them was, I understand you want to watch this. I like watching them too. But I like watching different things, so you need to tell me.
There's no judgment.
There's no judgment. Right. You tell me what you want to get, and I will get it, because, let's do it. And I was like, oh, and you appreciate that. And people appreciated that. And it was fun. And I had my own little, they used to make your little staff picks. Each of us on the staff would make staff picks. And my picks would always be some kind of movie, like Two-Lane Blacktop. With
James Taylor.
The best James Taylor movie ever.
Yeah,
James Taylor and Monty Hellman directed. And I said, what the hell is this one? I said, yeah, watch it. It's one of the guys who worked on The Wild Bunch, wrote it, and and I was like, it's fun. Or Repo Man. Like, I remember when I would start pushing Repo Man on people.
You mentioned it on Facebook the other day.
Yeah,
Repo Man is always
intense. I was like, yeah, man, watch Repo Man. And there'd be so many people who hadn't seen it. Yeah, it's a good movie. I said, it's good. It's Harry Dean Stanton. It's friggin' Emilio Estevez.
You mentioned Maximum Overdrive.
Maximum Overdrive has my pickup line. I got DVD director's cut of Maximum Overdrive. The chicks keep them away.
Emilio Estevez made some good fucking
movies. He did.
Both of those Young Guns flicks are really good movies. I'm sorry to derail you, but...
No, he did. He did some good flicks, man.
So this is like 90, 91. So this is this before you started doing comedy?
Yeah. Professional.
The video store?
Yeah. I was a funny person, and I always entertained the groups that I was working with, but I had never stepped on stage.
Did you do bits on your radio show? Did you do?
Oh yeah, because I had to. I created like a fake helicopter guy who at like 3 a.m. would do traffic updates. There's no traffic out here now, Mark. There's absolutely nothing. Thanks a lot, Bob. Up in the chopper, up in the JBX chopper. There's no traffic, and I do little bits and everything. And then we had a weather person who was at a general sort of place that I would, when I did the night show, not the overnight show, but the night show, that I had to call in. And we do, hey, here's Richard, what's going on? And he and I started to develop something of a rapport.
Oh, that's
where
cool.
we could, and I talked to him often. I said, do you mind if we do a little, like, I know we've only got a couple minutes. He said, yeah, go with it, man. I'm fine. Fuck it. He says, most times nobody wants to talk to me. They just say, here's such with the weather. And they go back to their own shtick.
Right.
So I try to incorporate him, and I would do, we had a wire service there, and, the AP wire that would spit out news. And my job also as the overnight person was I had to pull the important news stories for our newswoman who would come in for the morning show and make sure they were all in so she knew what the important news stories of the overnight were. Most times it was nothing. Most times nothing ever happened. And it was just, but occasionally like something big happened. Like I was on the air the night Roy Orbison died. And so I went on the air, I played Roy Orbison because we had him. And this, we had 50s and 60s. So sad news, Roy Orbison passed away, and we played like an hour of Roy Orbison music.
Oh, that's cool.
Because I could, but I did bits here and there. I contributed to there's a morning zoo show, and I contributed a few bits to that, recorded stuff when I would go in there and try to do some things. And I had fun, And then a couple of times when I guest hosted a couple of shows, like when there was a news person there was always room for, they'd say, there's a minute and a half of rapport between the two of you, which you don't have to, it's not, oh, okay. So basically ad-lib for a minute and a half. So try to, but, also under heavy guidelines of what you can actually talk about. We weren't doing Howard and Robin, let's put it that way. You know what I mean? But it was like, okay, I got a minute and a half to talk to this newswoman about something. Let's see and I'm going to go funny. Because that's my natural. I'm going to try to do something zany or funny, and that's where I think the germ of it was, and trying to do that. But the idea at that point of being on stage in front of people was scared the shit out of me. So I'm talking in front of this microphone. No matter how many people are out there listening, I don't know that. I only think, I have 2 people listening. Nobody listens to the show. There were more, but it wasn't good. But standing on a stage in front of a group of people I've never seen before was like, oh, I can't do that. There's no way I can do that. I'm way too self-conscious about everything. And then that came along years later, and just sort of seeing an ad for an improv class, and being at a time in my life when I felt really down, and I was working at another job then, but it was just like, this is a job. I just do this, I just show up.
Right, just a paycheck.
It's a paycheck, and I felt pretty lost in my life at that point in time. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go to this. It's a free class. And what do I got to lose? And there was like 30 people there. Free class. Everybody gets up, do some generic shit. And I was like, well, this is okay, fine. And then everyone had to get up on their own and do something for like 30 seconds based on something the teacher would give you, like something and a character. And I was sort of, I don't want to do this. Like I was scared, I don't want to do that. But she was picking everybody. I didn't really want to do it because I didn't know any of these people, and I immediately felt like this is me at a party. I'm in the corner and I'm self-conscious and I don't want to talk to anybody. And I don't remember honestly what it was, but I remember she gave me a scarf. I don't remember what the character was. And I got on stage and I sort of turned around and looked at everybody, and it was like something went off in my head. Yeah, this is where you should be, asshole.
It's just that fear, everything goes away. Yeah.
It was like a snap. This is where you belong. And I did it, and I got laughs, live laughs, And people had laughed at me before, at me or whatever at work, but this was different.
Yeah.
This was different, and I walked up and said, okay, how much is a clown? When does it start? And I signed up right there. I signed up. I was like, okay, I want to take this class. I don't know what this is, but I don't know why this hit me like that.
Right.
And also, I think a lot of it has to do with where you are in your life. Sometimes when you're out of position, you need something to reach you, and that doing comedy sort of like at that point was like, okay, and then I just have been doing it ever since. It's like now it's like fine, I'll jump up in front of an audience, I'll do something, I'll do what I do.
And was that before you did the for lack of a better term, straight acting? Or
yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, so comedy was the.
I tried them both right at the same time. Because right at the time, once I started doing the improv class, I said, I'm going to do an acting class too. So I had another night free, so I started doing some acting classes, and it just was like, okay, yeah, this is not for me. This is not for me. But the comedy night when I go to class, this I enjoy.
Oh, okay.
So stick with that
right away.
So stick with that. And then years later, after having done comedy for a while, when I started hanging around with some folks at work who were beginning a repertory company. And it was kind of like, we're doing this. Would you like to be part in a show? And I was like, yeah. And that's where I did the one Shakespeare because they were doing a Shakespeare adaptation. And I was like, no. I said, I'm a comic. I do comedy stuff. I do improv. I do stand-up. I've never done Shakespeare. I've seen it, but I don't. It's, we'd like you to do. We're doing Much Ado. And I was like, we want you to do Much Ado. And I was like, gosh. And all I got was like, oh my God, there's fucking little lines here and shit like that.
Yeah.
And there are, but I did it. And it was okay. And I was like, and then we started to work on original pieces and stuff like that, and shows, and I even co-wrote a play with the artistic director, which was fun. But it was like more serious stuff. Some of them were funny, but there was one play we did which was kind of serious. Our artistic director was a big fan of the movie Miller's Crossing, as was I. And he came up with this idea of sort of this piece set in the 1930s in a Midwestern town, kind of an elections going on, there's other things going on, and there's a mob guy who kind of runs things behind the scenes, and I was his guy. I was like the Gabriel Byrne to his Albert Finney. And it was and it had everything in it that I had never done on stage before. It was a romantic part because there's a woman involved who the boss had taken away from me. It was pretty derivative of Miller's Crossing. We both realized that, but we just changed a few things. He changed a few things about it, but I was psyched to do it. Because I get a kissing scene with the girl, I get to play a violent guy, I get to kill somebody, it was all this stuff, and the pseudo-hero, I get to have a death scene. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do this. And I don't know how great or good or shitty I was, but I put a huge effort into it, and everybody in the company said I was real good, and I enjoyed doing it. I got to play a nice part. And I did a few more of those over the years, like, another woman that I worked with on a show, she wrote this play, and she's like, I really want you to do this, but it's very dark. And I went, yeah, okay, I'll do it. I read it, and I was like, well, that is dark, because the character killed a couple of people, and he may have been a child molester. It was touched on in the piece, and it was very dark, and violent, and sexual, which nobody really associated with me, because I did, hey, let's comic funny.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I ended up shaving my head for, because I decided I need to change my look, because I look too okay to be this character. So I literally went to shave my head, went to a barber, shaved my head, walked into the first rehearsal, and took off my hat and started reading. And they're like the table reader. These are people I knew. I went, what? Are we okay? And it transformed what I was going to do. And then I began to realize more acting says, it's good to transform. Like when I shaved my head, I felt freedom to be this guy. Whereas maybe I couldn't be this guy. Go to that dark place of this character. Because there was scenes with an actress there who was playing younger. We didn't have a young girl, like a 15-year-old girl. We had an actress who was like 25, but she looked very young, who was playing the 15-year-old girl. It's touched upon what happens between us, but it's pretty, you can follow the lines of where I was going with it. It was hard. But I felt when I had this kind of new look, I was like, okay, I can do this. I'm getting in, this guy can do this. Affable guy with the hair, who looked like George Costanza, couldn't do this, but this bald guy, okay, I'm going to go dark with this. So it was fun. And I enjoyed it, but I still got more, I always would go back to comedy. Because still getting a laugh out of the audience was the big Jones for me. Okay, gotcha. Getting that kind of like, I got all these people. I made a reference that one guy got. But I'm happy with that. I'm fine with that, because that one guy who got the reference loves me. Mm-hmm. He walks out of there saying, you don't know how fucking funny that was.
I'm that guy.
Right, you are that guy. That's why I liked you, because you make a reference to something. I remember this once, I went to see a show in Florida. I was on vacation with some folks. We went to an improv show. It was a shitty improv show. But the guy on stage made a reference to Brian Piccolo from Brian's Show. Yeah. And I laughed. No one else in the audience laughed. I went up to him after the show. I said, man, That Brian Piccolo reference was, he said, you're the guy who laughed. I went, it's fucking hilarious. Yeah. I wish I thought of that. I've never used a Brian Piccolo reference at a show. I said, I hate you and I love you at the same time for doing that. And, he got it. And I was always like that. I'm going to try to find the reference that nobody's going to get except a couple of people. Do a show and I'll make a reference. I'll be doing an improv show. And I can't plan it. It just has to come. It'll come to the mind. I'll say, I'm going to throw out a name of one of the Watergate burglars in the middle of a show in 1997. That's going to, an E. Howard Hunt reference. That one guy's going to be like, fire. And everybody else like, who is that? I said, it's not, look it up. Whatever. It's not important. I said, it doesn't matter. I said, that guy liked it. Or a reference to somebody who was, I used to have a director, and we were of the same age, and in our old theater, he'd sort of sit in the perch watching the show. So I said, let's see what comes out today. And I would try to make references to like famous New York deaths of people who were like the Kitty Genovese killing back from the 60s. There's this woman who was killed and screamed for help, and everybody in Queens shut their door and let her die. And it was a pretty famous story in 1965. Mm-hmm. In 2000, it didn't have a shelf life. Right. Except when I use it as a reference to the guy who knows it, and I bring it up and they get it. Or this guy in, I think it was the 80s, his name was, he was a Finnish a banker from Finland. His name was Igel Vesti. And he was killed in a homosexual bondage slaying, and they found him with the gimp man before really? And it was a huge story in the Post. Yeah. And his name was out there for like 2 weeks that this guy was. So I made a reference to him in a show, and again, the director up in the is laughing and howling. People are turning around. I don't know why that's funny, but to him and I, throwing out a reference from the 1987. Death in New York City was funny, and I liked doing that. And the good thing about that was he was very supportive of me, and he once said to me, and I took it as a great compliment. He says, "You write sketches for 5% of the audience. That's all it's going to get it, and that's fine. You're not trying to be. You're writing things that are in your head that go to your places, and we'll put them up. They'll work or they won't work. It doesn't matter. It's not what I." And so you have someone who then supports you. It's like, oh, I don't have to go write a sketch that has things in it. I write the sketch that I want to see. I wrote a sketch about Jim Morrison as a stand-up comedian near the end of his life. And it's all, like hack comedy setups with Doors punchlines. Two Indians go to a bar bleeding, whatever. It's like shit. And it was just an excuse to put on a more leather pants and a fake beard and be Morrison drunk and everything like that. Audience is like, what? I don't know why this... No. I wrote a sketch about, it was a Leave It to Beaver movie directed by Oliver Stone. So, Beavers behind everything in the 60s. Beavers behind Kennedy getting killed. Beavers behind Martin Luther King. Beavers behind Vietnam. Everything that happens in the 60s is Beaver. He's there, and I was the Beaver. Gosh, I don't know, Mr. Nixon. Maybe I'm, whatever it is. It's me and his friend Beaver are doing everything to set up the whole 60s, the whole era. Oliver Stone presents Leave It to Beaver.
I like it.
And it was very dark and very conspiratorial, which is other shit that I love. I love conspiracy theory stuff. I eat it up. I was like, yeah, that's a conspiracy. Everything's a conspiracy. And so he let me write that. Moon landing. Yeah, the whole moon landing. It's bullshit. I said to somebody, I said, The Shining, the movie The Shining, is basically Kubrick's apology for faking the moon landing. If you watch The Shining, throughout, it's all these things where he's apologizing for faking the moon landing. They said, you're crazy. I said, oh, I'm crazy. The moon landing is bullshit. Kubrick filmed it on a soundstage. It was like, and I don't know necessarily that I believe all of that, but it's fun to think about.
It is fun, and it's fun to say it like
Kubrick filmed the moon.
It's like how I still stick with the idea that OJ didn't do it,
right?
Because I still don't believe that he did it. So, but it's like even much more than that. It's so much fun to say it and to see people's reactions to it, especially when they didn't watch the whole trial. Okay, now I'm getting off on a tangent, but. How did you go from improv class to was it were you in a regular improv group first? Yeah. How'd you get into a sketch group?
We were doing improv there, and then they branched out and had some sketch opportunities. The place I was there, and I was like, okay, I've written stuff, and then it was just a matter of getting accepted. So the first couple of things I wrote we had a director who despised me in the way I wrote, and that was just it. This stuff wasn't going to get on. I was still doing the improv portion of the show, but I couldn't do the sketch portion of the show. Like I had also written a sketch about a kid growing up in the Ku Klux Klan who didn't know how to hate, and it was kind of an after-school special. He hated people from Iceland and people who were in bands, and his father just, you have to hate, and he'd go on a litany of people you should hate, and the kid didn't know how to hate, you know, and it was like, and she said, well, we can't do this sketch because it's about the Ku Klux Klan. I went, okay. I said, but it's kind of taking a shot. But I wasn't also in a position to, like, I wasn't an arguer. At that time, I was like, I don't give a shit. Okay, fine, so you won't do the sketch. And then another director came in, and I presented it to him, and he said, this is insane, let's do it. So it's everyone's point of view, man. And I was like, and it wasn't the greatest sketch in the world. We did it like 2 or 3 shows. It got some laughs. I got to play a Klan guy on stage, which made me happy because I built a mitre. And I had a huge, oppressively large Klan hat. That was part of the joke. And I got to walk around in a wife beater and be an idiot. And my one actor playing my son and another girl playing my wife. And it was like, hey, I'm the I was the local Kleagle of whatever of the local chapter.
Right.
And I was like, I'm going to play a Klan guy on stage. I kind of enjoy that. It's kind of fun for me. And others, like another guy and I had a writing partner for a while, and we hooked up because we had the same mindset. And we wrote this Snapple commercial parody. This is right around the time Schindler's List was out. And it was sort of like a Nazi commandant commander who was trying, what would you do for your Snapple? And he started to kill members of the family, much, you know, like in Schindler's List.
Right. And,
you know, will you give up your Snapple to save your, you know, and I would kill them. I, of course, played the Nazi. Because it's like, I'm a Jew. Yeah. I want to play the Nazi. Right. And we wrote the sketch, we presented it, and it was like the other people in the company, and this is terrible, this is awful, we can't do it. It was a big thing. I said, wait a minute. I said, that's fine. We don't have to do it. But I'm going to tell you something. If we do this sketch, a bunch of my relatives will come see it. They're all Jews, and they're going to laugh. That much I know, because we can have fun with it. I said, the rest of you may think it's offensive, but hence the term Mel Brooks. We can have fun with it. So I said, I don't care if we do it or not, but don't tell me it's offensive, because this is my thing.
Right, it's my right to get offended or not, and I choose to laugh.
Yeah, and the guy who I wrote with was Irish. He didn't get shit. He didn't get, but we just migrated together because we started to be in class, and we realized, we go dark. Yeah, okay, let's fuck around with you. But that's it. That, you know, I didn't stop writing it because certain people would say, oh, you should write this. You should write more positive. You know, it's like, okay, there's other people in the group to do that. When I do get an idea, I'm going to follow through with it, and I'll just do it, and we'll either put it up or not. I never got depressed with that. I always felt, well, this is my vision, and if I have to live with it for the rest of my life by myself, so be it. And then other times you get in and do stuff, and people are like, wow, this is good. I said, it's the same piece. This woman looked at it and said it was shit. You're looking at it and you like it. I didn't change one word of it. Okay. Let's, you know, which always boggled. I said, okay, opinions are opinions. So well, somebody said to me, I forget what it was, they said, hey, Mark, opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one. I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. And they're all going to be, okay. I said, you do what you do. You want to write a sketch? Write a sketch. If we don't like it, we don't like it. If we like it, we'll put it up. But that sort of came at the same time of the improv group. We were both working together. We had 2 companies. So you could submit any sketch material you wanted and try to get it into the show.
What were you guys improv wise? Were you based on any the Del Close stuff?
Yeah, we were doing mostly.
Were you doing Harold?
Yeah, no. In the beginning, we were doing mostly short form stuff.
Okay.
Which is what I started doing. Like the Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Which is my favorite. I love short form.
It's always been my favorite and my go-to, and a lot of fun because it's kind of like you're in quick, it's funny, get out, and then you leave. You're in it for 2 minutes or whatever it is. We basically did that. That's where I cut my teeth. That's what I enjoy doing the most. And then the industry sort of changed in New York because everybody started, UCB hit big, and then it became like, oh, we all have to do a long form. So we basically shunned short form to my chagrin, but everybody was doing long form, so I adapted. I mean, it's still improv. It's still trying to be funny. And so we did a little more of the Del Close stuff and the Heralds and things like that. but short form was always around me. And I was like, and then another guy brought it back after a couple of years, and he said, I'm going to form a short form company that I'm going to direct at the same theater. Do you want to be in it? And I said, oh, yeah, I want to be in it. And that show, in one form or another, lasted for 12 years.
Damn.
I wasn't always a part of it. Sometimes I stepped away from it, but I was in it or directed it or oversaw it for the better part of 12 years until we stopped in 2013. So, and I was proud to do that. I was like, okay, we're doing a short form show. Whereas everybody at the time, when UCB hit in the pit and man, it was all long form.
Oh yeah,
and short form was getting shunned, and it was getting a dirty
time.
Word.
Big time.
And
that's the thing that infuriates me.
They looked the nose down on the short form. Mm-hmm. Short gamey. It's
games,
game.
Parlor games. Yeah.
And I remember once, this is when I was managing the theater and the group at that time. Another company came in. They rented the space to do a show, and they brought a comedian in. And that happened every so often, but the comedian started put down the theater, and how what a shithole this place is.
Right.
But he started talking about how short form was, and it was shit, and it was bullshit, and everything like that. And it was one of the few times I was like, you know what? Fuck it, I'm going to go on stage and grab them. It's my theater. I manage this place. Fuck you. You're done. I literally I was that close to walking, ripping off his mic. You don't come into my place and shit where I live and what I do. And I didn't. I was at the door and I was like, this may not be the best step to make because they rented the space and they paid for it. And if they want to put this up. But I talked to those people after I said, do me a favor. I said, if you're going to bring a comic, I know you can't gauge it. I don't want to have somebody come in here who's going to shit on what we do here. I don't like it. And and I made a point. I said, I know you can't control what they're going to do, but I'm going on record saying I don't like it. Because I didn't. I was like, what? It's all this whole cult, UCB, you do games. Like, well, fuck, I thought the idea was, and I did this again, it gets meta. A few months ago when I did a bit, I decided to do like the improv stand-up, the battle, because it was at a show which had improv and stand-up. I said, this is like, improv, because stand-up comedy has the guise of being everybody hates each other and everybody's out to get each other and it's all this and that, and improv has the guise of, oh, I love you, and Ramdas, and let's hug, and right? And I said, and to a certain extent, it's all bullshit, because when a stand-ups need to do something for help another stand-up, watch how they run to do that. Mm-hmm. Watch how they run to help a fellow stand-up. And the improv world, if you dare to mention to the places you work at, maybe I'd like to get $10. Oh, no one gets paid for improv. We're all part of the great collective. How dare you? No one gets paid for improv. How dare you think we do this for love and for what? Wait, what? What are you talking? Wait, what? Oh, you're in game improv? Oh, how dare you do games? We do long form, just directly from the bosom of Del Close and this and that. Game. Oh my! And I was like, so we generalize that everybody in improv is positive and wonderful, and everybody in stand-up is shitty to each other. And I said, it's kind of bullshit. Mm-hmm. It's a false narrative that's kind of taken over. Because I said, I've known some improv people. If you dare to say, well, improvers should get paid, like no. Well, I said, wait a minute, all those people make money. The people, the UCB folks, make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. They've done very well for themselves. They make money. Yeah, but they put it all back in and everything. Do they really? Okay. All right, fine. And stand-ups, because we want money to, we're getting $10 for, it's like, I find the phoniness there. It gets to be a bit, and the long formers, and love them. I'm not attacking them. I'm not shitting on them, do what they're gonna do. But I don't like when they decide, like, oh, your form of improv, because you only do 2 minutes of characters, and everything like that. Okay, all right. That's the point where I look at the audience and go, yeah, but the audience is going to laugh.
Right.
They're going to laugh for 2 minutes, then we're going to give them a blackout and give them a chance to breathe, then we'll give them something else.
And they're going to laugh. And
they're like that. So to me, it's always like knocking the, if something seems phony to me, then I'm just going to go after it. But that's difficult to do in improv because it gets very culty.
Oh, yeah.
And if you start to attack the masters and the cult, everyone...
Oh yeah.
You get ostracized out, and they close ranks and they push you out. And to me, and I've always like, really, that's what improv's about? I thought you guys taught that it was all loving and okay. But you have to be very careful with that. I mean, at some point, like I see a lot of people, they do these workshop after workshop after workshop after workshop for years and years, and it's somebody, okay, when does it stop?
Yeah.
When does it stop? How long? Like, how long do you keep, and there's so many improv. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, and I said this out loud, and I shouldn't have, but I didn't care. I was helping a couple of people. I was directing them. They were doing a a man and a woman, two-person improv show, and I was directing them. We were speaking, and we're standing outside waiting for the elevator, and there's 7 white guys and 1 girl standing there. And I looked at my friend. I said, "Oh, it must be a UCB improv thing." Because to me, every improv picture I see, it's 7 or 8 guys, and there's 1 girl.
For the most part.
And I know I'm generalizing there, but I was like, I see that a lot.
Yeah.
I see that a lot. And then, so whatever. And that's just me. And I was like, I don't give a fuck what people think. I don't care what you think of me. You don't know me, so I'll make that point. But that's what I try to say. There's room enough for everybody. And don't always, And then I've heard that from improvers too. Oh, stand-ups are all dicks. I said, look, there's dicks everywhere. Just stop. There's dicks in your improv troupe. There's dicks in your company. And there's stand-ups who are dicks. There are also stand-ups who are great people who help each other. I mean, don't generalize and think that we're all just sitting around attacking each other at comedy shows. Yeah, it happens. Sometimes it's fun. Sometimes it's not. But it's a pigeonhole of like, oh, they're all out for themselves or this, that, and the other thing. It's like, you don't know what they're out for. You don't know. Unless you start to do it and hang around with the people, and then you can make a judgment on it.
But we are different.
They're different.
Stand-ups and improvers, right. We are just different people.
Yeah, there's a different want and a different desire.
Yeah, and to think that it only manifests itself in the obvious way, to me, is ludicrous, Do you consider yourself like a stand-up or an improviser or just a comedian in general? Or?
I'll go comedian in general. I mean, if I go back out now, like I did an improv show a couple of months ago, they asked me to guest. And I was like, okay, we'll do an improv show. And it was fun and it was fine. But I have done it so much for the years that all I thought about was, I'd rather test myself now than doing stand-up. I'd rather just write some material. I'm thinking about things. Now I do a lot of it when I post things on Twitter or on Facebook, because if I'm not doing a show, it's like, oh, I want to get this out there. And people will either dislike it or hate it or think it's stupid. Like last night on Facebook when I was sitting at work, I wanted to do the Aristocrats joke.
Right,
and I posted it, and nobody, not one of you, I was hoping somebody would add it on and everything like that. Because I said, let's tell a joke.
Oh, see, it wasn't clear to me.
It wasn't clear, and I realized that now I wanted people to add in, and a buddy of mine said, I see what you're trying to do. And I wanted people to add the rest of the story and see where the collective mindset would go.
Create it. Wow, that's interesting. Like the Shain Aristocrats. That's a brilliant concept.
And it was fine. It's like, or on Twitter, I'll just post something. And it's like, okay, I like this, I like that. That's where I do a lot of it now. But I write, if I go more elaborate with stuff, it's like, okay. When I wrote the James Brown thing, and now I've sort of expanded that because I did the James Brown thing. I was like, okay, how can I expand this? And I said, now then the other part was like, wouldn't it be interesting if you chose James Brown in your GPS? Because then you'd say, well, I don't know if we can go to the bridge or not. You're supposed to tell me. I'm driving here. I don't know. Are we going to the bridge? And the James Brown. So you want to try. I would right now, if I could have a spot to do like once a week, like I did when Leanne had her show, I'd do it. And I'm going to find it. I'm going to get myself to a point where I say, fuck it. This is a show. I'm just going to show up here. It's my one night off or whatever, and I'm going to show up and I got to pay $5. I got to buy a drink. I don't know anybody here. Let me go exercise, because that's what my mindset is now. It has been for a while, about trying to do. I want to hold a microphone or whatever, and I want to stand in front of people and just talk about what I want to talk about. If I want to do my bit about cops and everything like that, no matter what's going on in the world, if people don't, I want to do it. I want to talk about how hey, we have different cops nowadays, and they're a little bit bullyish and angry. I'm sorry, just the way I feel about it. I understand they have a tough gig, out there, and I don't mean, but this is what I see, having lived here my whole life. This is what I see. This is the phoniness I see, or something like that. And it's nice to have a venue to talk about it, and to take it and get up there on stage and have the balls enough to just stand up. Here's my 5 minutes. I'm going to talk about this. We hated you. Okay, sorry. Or you were great job, good concept. You should work on this, and the other thing. Like I got a lot of great advice over the time from you guys who'd always say, you know what, maybe that should go in front of that. Mm-hmm. And Leanne was like that all the time. She said, yeah, you're wording it wrong. And, you know, I'm like, oh shit, yeah, okay. That's where my mindset would be now. If you said to me, Mark, you're going to do a show once a week, improv or stand-up, I'd say, I'll choose stand-up. Because I think that's where I'm writing, and that's where I want it to go. Whereas improv, what's the point of, I don't write. I'm just going to get up and create something. So what I'm planning and writing, I can't do.
Right.
So I'm the voice that is sort of like wants to come out, can't in improv. Because I have to, I'm living in the moment of what goes on there. Whereas in stand-up, it's like, oh, this voice can come out now. I can do this, you know, thing about the city or what's going on or relationships as I see them. Or dating as I see it, my point of view. And that's like, oh, okay, it's your thing. You can be unique. So that's what I'd rather do now, if given the opportunity.
All right. Wow. That's an hour and 40.
Oh, cool.
In the books.
Excellent. That was good, because you know what I liked about it?
There's still more stuff. There's like...
It was very conversational.
Well, yeah.
That's what I like. That's a good one.
Well, all right. This may or may not go somewhere. So I could you know, there's an obvious edit point there.
Yeah.
But in case this doesn't, like, how do you direct improv?
Well, you put people in a mindset of, I mean, it's you have to teach them. Teaching and directing. When I would direct improv is with professional improvisers.
Right.
I say to them, keep your mind open, don't plan anything, be ready, listen to what the person in front of you says, and then go from there. And if they have an idea, try to go down the river with them. See where it goes. Don't have any fear. Don't be afraid. Don't bring your baggage into it.
So it's more just like reinforcement.
Yeah, it's reinforcement, and it's reminding them of the things they should be doing, and keeping them in, like, you have to, if he says we're going to do this, do it. Don't be afraid, and, you know, and just live with I mean, okay, he's grabbing you, but he's not grabbing you. It's two characters grabbing each other, so just sort of...
So it's almost like giving them the permission to make sure that they follow whatever their impulse is.
Yeah, follow the impulse and give them permission to you know, and tell them, like, when you see something, it's like, look, that wasn't your best choice. Okay, it's over. But you know you could have been smarter there, or you missed, you know, watch for this opportunity here. Like, oh, that's why I have a lot of difficulty going to improv shows now, because I tend to sit there and go, oh, she missed that offer.
Yeah.
Oh, he wanted to go there. He wanted to go left. Yeah. Nobody saw him. Nobody saw him go there, so he's wasted, because nobody paid attention to that movement, and it's wasted. And it's easy to sit in a perch or a seat and see everything. And because I've been on stage and I've missed plenty of shit. That's the whole point of improv. You're going to miss a lot of shit. You're going to not listen to stuff. You're going to have other things happen. But you try and get them into a position where it's like, okay, I think everybody be at your top level of thinking and try to do this. And guide them down the right path. That's what you do. And teaching them then is different, because teaching is like, okay, expect to fail. Don't try to be funny. Expect to fail. Go ahead, do it. Listen to what the person's saying, you know. Don't pimp them, you know, don't necessarily, you know. I had one class that I just finished teaching, and what happened was there was a guy in the class who's never done improv before. And every time he would say something in stage, he'd look to me. And I said to him, I said, you look at me every time you say something. I'm not part of your scene. What are you expecting from me? Well, I want to know if I'm doing it right. He said, I said to him, there's no right. I said, there's no right. You want to know if you're doing it right? The person you're standing next to will tell you if you're doing it right. Don't worry about me. I don't exist. I'm unimportant. You've got to work with your scene partner and follow that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and then once you started teaching, and it worked after a couple of weeks, you started to pick stuff up. I said, see, you're starting to pick stuff up. You're starting to pick up that fact that I'm in a scene and I can do this and I can do that. And I was like, okay. You know. And directing is just like that. It also depends on picking out, like with people, like when I directed these two folks in a two-person, because I'd worked with them before, like about a year ago. I said, okay, remember you have a bad habit here. Every time you get in a scene with her, you go to the same place, which means you're planning it, which means something from the back, you know, you automatically make it a romantic scene. Every time. Through rehearsal, every time, which means you're planning it. You may not know you're planning it, but you're planning it. So you got to clear out the shit and just because that wasn't supposed to be a romantic scene, but you took it there and you do it every time, or you kind of do this kind of you play this character every time of the self-effacing guy, the guy who always does this. I said, just once I'd like to see you play the guy.
Right.
You know, and I said it to him private. I said, because you get in a scene with your friend, with her, she's not going to expect that. She knows she's expecting you now to be like, hey, okay, I'm the supportive boyfriend. She's not expecting you to be the guy who all of a sudden in the scene gets right up in her grill.
Mm-hmm.
And think about where that will go. I said, now don't plan this.
Yeah. But
if it comes to a moment where you just have a moment, and also, and the two of you are friends, they went to college together, so they've known each other a long time, and they're very close. I said, and here's the other thing. I said, if you guys get near each other and you have this comfort level with each other and you're very close to each other, you do something physical. If it's a push, a shove, a kiss, if it's something, do it. Because what it's going to do is the other person isn't going to expect it. They're not going to be put off by it because they completely trust you. This isn't like two strangers. I mean, that's one thing if it's two people don't know each other and you kiss a girl in a scene.
Right.
That's a different dynamic.
Right, yeah.
But if you two know each other and you've trusted each other and you've hung out and you're friends, this scene's going to go to an interesting place. And the audience is going to love it because they're going to go, whoa, these two, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
They planted one on each other. What are we watching here? Is this a couple? Are these real, like boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife? You get them more rather than the generic like
involved. Right.
Scene of just And the same thing I said I have guys I work with I feel comfortable with. I'll one of them will punch me. I'll get it. One guy I know came up behind me once in a scene. I didn't know he was behind me. And he started to lick my head. Bald head. He's licking my head. Everybody in the audience saw him coming from behind me and kind of knew what he was looking at. I did. I'm talking to someone else. And the sensation of having a human lick your bald head sent me to a place that I didn't think I was going to go because I had no.
Pay good money for
it's like, and I had to then. What the fuck are you doing? Let's go. Let's see how this scene develops with while this guy's licking my head, and it was kind of gross because I was sweaty. I had to sweat, but he was it's kind of, but he drank afterwards and Lysoled up or whatever it is. But it was and he didn't do it a lot. He didn't lick me for like a half hour. He did like 3 licks, like a Charms blow pop. 1, 2, 3. But still, and it got a reaction from the audience because they're looking at it. Oh, this isn't fake. This is a real moment here. They didn't plan this because the look on my face in the initial lick was. And now we'll see where Mark goes with the same. And we had a fun scene and worked on night. So I try to tell people, I said, get comfortable with each other physically and then use that. Use the physicality. Use everything. Because just staying there talking to each other is fine and one thing, you can be funny, but if you're actually using physicality, it adds a level of realness to everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's real life.
Right.
It's real life. If you're in a relationship with somebody and you're a couple, there are little couple things that you guys do together. If you do it in a scene, it resonates with everybody in the audience.